Hello, Big Two. Hello, friends. Welcome to Lizziefaye Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth, and I would like to share with you a little bit about what I read in the month of May. This is not going to be my only wrap up for the month. I did a mid-month wrap up, and I'm going to try to remember which books I already talked about, and then I will be doing a second half of this end of the month wrap up because I did two different projects for hashtag Book a Day in May, which is a challenge that Elizabeth Tyree and I have been doing for several years, sort of in conjunction with Middle Grade May, because since we're reading a lot of middle grade books, we figured that was a fun month to see if we could read enough to average out a book a day for the whole month. And for Book a Day in May, it doesn't have to be full-length books. It doesn't even have to be all middle grade books. It can be short stories. It can be children's storybooks. And so last year, I started a project with my daughter Emily where we read a Dr. Seuss book every day in the month of May. So for this year, we decided to do that again since there are way more Dr. Seuss books than I ever realized. And so last year, we predominantly read books that were written and illustrated by Dr. Seuss. This year, we branched out and we almost finished all of the books that are written and illustrated by him. There's a drawing book that I wasn't able to get my hands on, and the song book we looked at last year, but we couldn't sing our way through it because we don't have a piano anymore, so it's technically not finished. But all the other 44 books that he wrote and illustrated in his lifetime, we have read now. And then there are books that have been published since he passed away, books that were written by him and illustrated by other people, and books written under a pseudonym. So we just did a lot of Dr. Seuss related reading in the month, and that'll be a whole separate video. And we also read a few VeggieTales books and one folk tale that I'm counting for middle grade May, so I'll tell you about that in this video. So let me give you the stats. This video is going to mainly focus on the books that I did not read with Emily, and then I'll do another video where she will make an appearance and share with you her favorites of what I read with her. But for the total reading for the month, I read a total of 75, really 76 books, because I read and listened to one book in its entirety. And so I counted that one 2 times on Goodreads, which would make a total of 76. But 75 different books. And I neglected to add up how many were audio and how many were print, so I'll put that right here. This is my number for audio, and this is my number for print. Now, keep in mind, the print books included all the children's storybooks, of which there were 38. And then we also read a total of 38 Dr. Seuss books, but some of those don't count in that total of 38 storybooks because there were a couple of coffee table books, there were a couple of adult books, and so there were 38 books that relate to Dr. Seuss. And then of the 38 storybooks, some of those were VeggieTales books, and then one was the children's folk tale that I'm also counting in my middle grade total, which was 20. A total of 20 middle grade books. And then of the adult books, 2 of them were Amish books that were carryovers from Amish in April. And then 4 or 5 were nonfiction books. It looks like I wrote 4 and then wrote over it with 5. I don't know. I read a few nonfiction books, and a couple of those were the coffee table books that were Dr. Seuss related. One of them was an adult book, one was a teen, geared towards teens, memoirs, and then one was a book for families. So then I read 4 books that were related, or I read for book club. 2 of those were book clubs we've already met about, and I had started the book and didn't get it finished in time, so I finished those books because they came up in my overdrive, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and get them finished, get them off my currently reading list, and be done with them. And then 2 were cozy mysteries, one of which was for book club, my local library book club, and the other was for the Killin' Time with Cozy's online book club, and that was the last book in a series. So I finished that series, as well as three other series that I finished. The other series that I finished were all middle grade series. I made progress in 3 series that I didn't finish, and I started 3 series. So within those totals, 2 of the series that I finished were on my Serious About Series list, or my SAS list, and then 1 of the 3 series I made progress in is also on my SAS list, but I didn't finish that series. And 2 of the books that I read were rereads, and then 2 of the goals that I had for the month were to finish reading all of the Newbery winners of the 1940s, and I had 4 left to read, and I got 3 of those read, so I still have 1 left. And then of the list of the 15 Sunshine State books for 6th to 8th grade, I still needed to read 4 of those, and I got 3 read, so I still have 1 left. And then I also, along kind of with the Newbery goal, I did read 1 contemporary Newbery winner from the 20-teens, maybe. Can't remember exactly what year it's from. And then I read a Newbery Honor book. I listened to it on audio. Actually, both of those I listened to on audio. So I think that's all of the stats. And it was a fun month. I'm going to be really excited to tell you about the Dr. Seuss books that we read, but let me just go ahead and mention a couple of things very briefly, one of which I forgot to bring in here, so hold on a second. One of the most interesting books by Dr. Seuss that we read, and yes, I did read this with Emily, is The Seven Lady Godivas. Now, this is a book that Dr. Seuss wrote for adults, and I think it's only been published twice. I don't think it's in print currently today, but thankfully my library did have a copy, and this was pretty funny. It's not nearly as scandalous as you might think, but I will tell you more about it in my Dr. Seuss video, so you'll have to check out that video whenever it comes up. And then another book that I read, I did share this with Emily. She saw the pictures, but I did not make her sit through reading all of the text. For one thing, I didn't want to read all the text out loud, but this is a coffee table book, really, basically about the art of Dr. Seuss, and it's called The Cat Behind the Hat. It has a lot of the artwork and also a good bit of text, biographical text about Dr. Seuss, or Theodore Seuss Geisel, and it took me a few days to read this, so I didn't count this as one of the Book a Day in May books for Emily. On the same day that she looked at these pictures, we had a little board book of one of the Dr. Seuss books that he wrote under the name Theo Lessig. Is that how you say it? And so we counted that one for that day. Anyway, I will tell you more about these books that I read with Emily whenever I do that video, which should be coming up after this video within the next couple of days. All right, before we get into the middle grade books, let me just quickly go over the adult books. The 2 cozy mysteries that I read are these 2 right here, and I believe I talked about all of these adult books in the first half of the month, because I think I got all of them done then. Well, I don't know. Except for this one. I know I didn't listen to this one until right after I did that video. This is what we read for the Killin' Time with Cozies group. It is the Dangerous Type mystery series by Paige Shelton. It's just a 3-book series, and this is the last book, Comic Sans Murder, and I did enjoy it. And then this is the beginning of a series, which I think I will probably go ahead and continue. This was our library book club pick for my mystery book club for the month of May. It's Elementary She Read by Vicki Delaney, and I have been reading another series by Vicki Delaney. It's the Year-Round Christmas mysteries, which I really enjoy, but they are not on audio, not to my knowledge, and so it's taken me a little longer to read those. I think I've read 3 of them, I think, at this point. At least 2, maybe 3. Anyway, these are on audio. The, what is it? The Sherlock Holmes Bookshop mystery. And I'm not a huge Sherlock Holmes fan, but I did enjoy this book. And I've read a little bit of Sherlock Holmes, so I got some of the parallels and everything, so that was fun. And then for my May book club, we read The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. I started out really enjoying that, and then I didn't love the ending. It kind of, I think Emily Sears commented that she thought it kind of went off the deep end, and I think that's a good way to describe it. But overall, it was a quick read, and I enjoyed the reading process of it. I just didn't love the ending. Then, and maybe I didn't understand the ending, really, because we had a discussion about it in our book club meeting, and what I thought happened at the end was totally different than what most of the people thought happened at the end. So, a little confusing. Then these are the two that were for previous book clubs that I just never got finished until this month. I think it was February when we read The Personal Librarian by Marie Benedict. I didn't really care that much for this one either. And I'm glad that I got it done, though, because it's been sitting on my currently reading list since February. This was either March or April for my regular literary book club, Apples Never Fall by Leanne Mariarty. And I didn't love this one either. The characters are not really all that likable, and, I didn't love it. I've read other books by her that I've enjoyed a lot more. Okay, then let's go ahead and do the nonfiction. I think I already talked about this, and I did a whole video about my it's not new, but sort of my reboot of getting organized, and so far so good. I haven't accomplished everything that I set out to, but definitely things are improving around here, and I'm happy for it. So I read Get Your Act Together by Pam Jones and Peggy Young. They were the inspirations behind The Fly Lady, and I've read her books as well. So, I've read at least the main book and one or two others. And then this one is a devotional book that I read with Emily. It's really geared towards families. It would be a little tough to do it like it's intended. The way it's intended to be utilized is you read the main part of the devotion in the morning with your family, say over the breakfast table or whatever, and then you sort of have an assignment to do throughout the day. Then you're supposed to reconvene in the evening and discuss how you did. So Emily and I didn't do that because, with her and I, since she's nonverbal, it's kind of a one-way discussion. But I did go ahead and just read the entire thing through in the morning. And then sometimes the next day we would talk about what, maybe what we did based on the previous day. So anyway, I think it is a really good book, and it would be great for, I think especially for Christian families who are homeschooling and they already have that family dynamic where they're meeting together for school, and they could do this devotion as like their opening of the day, maybe. I don't know. It wasn't bad at all. I had purchased this for $1 at Second and Charles when I was on my trip to Texas and back, and it was definitely worth $1. Emily and I enjoyed it, and now I will probably pass this on to someone else, or maybe put it in my eBay store. And then right at the end of the month, I had listened to a couple of Gary Paulsen books on audio that were on my TBR list, books on my shelf that I wanted to go ahead and read through and see if I could pass those on. And this one I couldn't find on audio, but it was little and it's been sitting on my shelf, and I thought I'm just going to go ahead and read it, get it done, and I loved it. Now, I do not like the water. This is Caught by the Sea, My Life on Boats by Gary Paulsen. This was intense, and this gave me some anxiety, but it was a great book. Now, even though I didn't enjoy the other two books by Gary Paulsen that I listened to on audio, he really does write vividly. So on audio, I listened to The Winter Room, which I think is this a Newbery honor? It's very vivid, but I don't like all the topics. And the same for Harris and Me. Gary Paulsen really writes for more of a young male demographic. Now, I loved Hatchet, and I've read all the Brian books, and I can see how it would be more of interest to boys, but still, I loved it. So it's not, I'm not saying that girls can't read his books. They're completely accessible for girls. That's just really not the demographic for a lot of his books that I have read more recently. Lawn Boy, I read a long time ago, and I loved it. I have the sequel to it, Lawn Boy Returns, that I didn't get to yet. But, those are great, very fun. But these two I did not love, and I will probably be passing these on. This one I will probably also be passing on to someone else too, but this in the inside front cover says that it is written for teens, and a middle grade student could certainly read it, but it might go over their head a little bit, and it went over my head a little bit because he talked a lot about the different aspects of sailing, which, you know, I don't know the terminology or anything, but still I very much enjoyed it. It was very intense, and I would recommend it. And it was very short. It was just like right at 100 pages. So moving on then to the other middle grade books that I read. This one is a storybook, but Elizabeth Tyree was telling me on the live stream that we did the other night that Tim Tingle did say that this is really geared toward middle grade and completely appropriate really for either age. This is a Choctaw folktale, When Turtle Grew Feathers, and Tim Tingle is a member of the Choctaw tribe, of which I am also a member, and I really want to read more of his books. He's got books for all ages, at least as far as I can tell, and I am very interested in reading more by him. So I don't own a copy of this. I checked this out from the library. I'm so glad that they had it, and it's basically a Choctaw version of The Tortoise and the Hare, and I really enjoyed it. I read this with Emily, and we're also counting this for Indigenous for the I prompt for middle grade May. And then I may forget to tell you what counts for each prompt, but I did that in the live stream. So if you've seen that, then you already know what counted for the prompts. I did finish a couple of series. I finished the Charlie Joe Jackson series. Now, I own the first book, and I couldn't get a copy of the sixth book. So this is the first book, Charlie Joe Jackson's Guide to Not Reading. This is where you want to start. Charlie Joe Jackson is a boy in middle school who hates reading, and it's so great. I love that book. So these are books 4 and 5. Charlie Joe Jackson's Guide to Making Money is book 4. Charlie Joe Jackson's Guide to Planet Girl is book 5. Then Charlie Joe Jackson's Guide to Not Growing Up is book 6, and our library does not have a copy of it, but I listened to all of these on Scribd, at least these last 3. I think I read a couple of them in print, at least the first one, and however you can get them, they're worth reading. They're great. And then the other series that I finished is a trilogy that is by one of my favorite middle grade authors, James Ponti. This is the 3rd book in the City Spies trilogy. If there's going to be more, I don't know. James Ponti tends to write in trilogies, so I'm kind of guessing that this is going to be the last one. Forbidden City is the 3rd book, and a very good series about kids who are spies, basically. And it's a good book for found family as well. Then another middle grade book series that I guess I've started now because I really enjoyed it. At the time, I read it because it's a Sunshine State book, and I didn't even know it was a series when I first put it on my list, but I loved it, and so I definitely think I want to finish or at least read more of the series. But the series is Charlie Thorne by Stuart Gibbs, and this is Charlie Thorne and the Last Equation. This has something to do with Einstein, and it's math related and all of that, which I'm not good at math, but I enjoyed the book thoroughly. Then, since that was a Sunshine State book, let me go ahead and tell you about the other 2 that I finished or read. A Wish in the Dark by Christina Soontorn. I listened to this on audio on Scribd, and it was okay. I thought it was going to be a little more magical, and the magical aspect didn't come into play really until right near the end. It had a lot of emotional things, and it's about a young boy who was born in prison, and all the children who are born in prison are considered criminals, and in order to get out of their parent has to be let out, I believe, and he escapes before his time is up and ends up going to a monastery, and yet he's a fugitive, and he's just a young boy who's never, it wasn't his fault that his mother was in prison. So it's, I don't know, it's very thought-provoking, and there's just a lot of emotional things that go on. I did enjoy it for the most part, but it was kind of tough. Then another book that I read twice, actually. I listened to the full cast audio, which was wonderful, and I read the graphic novel simultaneously, and I thought this book was fantastic. This is by Victoria Jameson and Omar Mohammed. Victoria Jameson is the artist, and Omar Mohammed is the person who the story is about, and it's his story, so it's basically kind of a memoir of his as told to Victoria Jameson. So it's very good. It's about Omar and his younger brother, who is nonverbal, and their life in a refugee camp in Kenya. They are Somali refugees, and it's a true story. So I highly recommend it. I thought it was great. I think you should pick it up, definitely. Either the audio or the graphic novel, both are great. I can't really pick one over the other. I'm glad that I read both. And then the trilogy that I finished is one of the trilogies that I had on my list of 12 trilogies to finish last year that I didn't get to. And really, the only way I was able to finish it this year is because it's now on audio on Hoopla, which is great. So because of that, I went ahead and listened to the first book again. Even though I had a pretty good memory of it, there are some character relationships that I couldn't remember exactly. There are ties to King Arthur and all of those legends. So I didn't remember some of the details. So I wanted to go ahead and just listen to this again. It was great. It's The Eighth Day by Diane K. Salarni. And then I'm happy to say I went on and listened to the other two, The Inquisitor's Mark and The Morrigan's Curse. If you like Arthurian stories, then you will want to pick this up. If you like urban fantasy, you will want to pick this up. And if you like middle grade books that are all of those things, then you'll want to pick up this trilogy. I thought it was great. The Eighth Day was a Sunshine State book several years ago, which is how I happened to read it in the first place. And I thoroughly enjoyed all three of those books. Then, of course, I also read The Penderwix. This is a reread, and it's the second reread. The first reread I just talked about, The Eighth Day. And The Penderwix is a summer tale of 4 sisters, 2 rabbits, and a very interesting boy. And I loved reading this again. The first time I listened to it on audio, my first time through, and this time I read it in print, and it was very good. I picked up on some things that I had either forgotten or missed when I listened to the audio, and I'm really excited that we're reading this series and that I'm getting to read it again and with several of you. So be sure to check out my Goodreads group, Lizziefaye's Comfy Corner, make some comments about this book, and if you haven't read it, you can still read it and make comments at whatever point that you would like. And then I read some Newbery winners. I also read one classic that I didn't love. I listened to this on audio right near the end of the month. The Swiss Family Robinson by, I totally butchered the name when I talked about this earlier. This is Johann David Wyss. Even in my other video, I was like, Weiss, Weiss, neither, Wyss. Johann David is the author of The Swiss Family Robinson, and it wasn't bad. It was a little wordy. There was just one of the sons was just really trigger happy and tried to or wanted to shoot every animal that they encountered, and I was like, okay, come on, you don't have to shoot everything. Anyway, that wasn't the only reason, but there were a lot of parts about it that I really enjoyed. I need to go back and watch the old TV show or movie or series or whatever it was, miniseries maybe, from the 60s. I would like to watch that. I've seen parts of it, but anyway, I need to go back and watch that again. I think I would enjoy that, but I just did not love the full-length book. So the Newbery winners from the 1940s that I read. On audio, I listened to King of the Wind by Marguerite Henry. This is the story of the Godolphin Arabian. I talked a little bit about that in my mid-month wrap-up. And then it sort of took me all month because I just read this a little bit at a time. This is Adam of the Road by Elizabeth Janet Gray with illustrations by Robert Lawson in my edition. Maybe every edition, I don't know. Robert Lawson is also the author of one of the other Newbery winners from the 40s, Rabbit Hill, which I read a couple months ago. Anyway, I enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I might. This is set around the same time as the Pillars of the Earth, which I'm reading. I had put it on hold for a couple months, but now I've picked it back up in June and am actively reading it again. But this is set in England in 1294. And it is, of course, because it's a children's book, not nearly as barbaric as Pillars of the Earth, but I found it very enjoyable. It was very slow paced. I couldn't read a whole lot of it at one time, but I did enjoy it. And the other one that I read is very short, but it took me a little while to read because it was just very unique. Miss Hickory by Carolyn Sherwin Bailey. I am just one book away from getting all of the books from the 1940s read, all the Newbery winners, and I'll do that video, and I'll tell you a little bit more about this book then, but it was just very unique. And then the other Newbery winner that I read was from the 2000s. I have not done a video of this decade yet either. 2017, so this was probably the 2018 winner. This is Hello Universe by Erin Entrada Kelly. I didn't love this one either for reasons I will probably tell you a little more about when I do that video, which is still a little ways out. What else is there? Then I had, on the last day of the month, I had some time for one more audiobook, and I listened to Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians by Brandon Sanderson. I like this okay. I don't know if I want to read the whole series. I might go ahead and try at least one more and see how it goes. I think these are on Hoopla. I don't know if they all are. I'm not even sure how long the series is. But anyway, I've never read anything by Brandon Sanderson before, and this is written in first person, so it could count for the Y prompt for the family prompts for middle grade May. But I don't know. I enjoyed it well enough probably to continue on. This was also written in first person. It's also a mystery. It's about found family, and it could really meet most of the prompts for middle grade May. And I can't remember now which one I said I was going to count it for, but this is The Odds of Getting Even by Sheila Turnage. It's a Moe and Dale mystery. It's book 3 in a series of 4. It's on my Serious About Series list. I do want to go ahead and read the 4th book this year. I absolutely loved this book. Only the first and second book have I ever seen on audio. I've never seen books 3 and 4 on audio, but it's fine. It's a series that I will keep. I would love to read it again. In fact, since I listened to the second book on audio, I missed some things, and I will probably, once I finish the series, just go back and start over. In fact, chapter 1 of the first book, 3 Times Lucky, is in the back of this book. And since it had been a few years since I had read that, I went ahead and read chapter 1 of 3 Times Lucky before I started this book. And I just can't recommend this series enough. Moe LeBeau is the main character. It's just one of my favorite literary characters, not even just in middle grade books, but in all books. She's just great. I love her so much. And her sidekick, Dale, is equally great. And it's just a fun cast of characters. Sheila Turnage can just really write some fantastic dialogue, and I highly recommend. In fact, I need to see what else she has written other than this series, because if this series is this great, then I need to see what else she has written. So, highly recommend picking up this series. Start with 3 Times Lucky. It's about a little girl who is named Mo, or Moses, because she was found in a Moses basket by the Colonel and Miss Lana, who are her adoptive parents, and they run a diner or a cafe in this little town. I guess it's in Louisiana. Is it Louis? Yeah, I believe so. Anyway, it's just great. I love it. And I think that's everything except for 2 books that I listened to on audio. They are on Audible, and I believe they were Audible originals that I got free when I was a full Audible member and was getting 1 credit a month. I still have the Audible Plus membership, but I don't pay enough to get the 1 full book credit per month. But anyway, I listened to 2 of these that have been hanging around in my Audible library for a couple of years now. The shortest one is called For Everywhere, and it is a science fiction fantasy book about a rock band. Let's just leave it at that. It's got some mythological creatures in it, like a unicorn and a giant, and it was cute. I didn't love it, but it was cute. Then the other one was a science fiction book called Sovereign by Jeff Hirsch. I have read at least one other Jeff Hirsch book before. This is a book set on another planet. It's set on the planet Sovereign, and it was very interesting. It ended kind of abruptly. I was kind of getting invested in the story, and then all of a sudden it was over, and I was like, wait, what? That's it? So it was like a 6-hour audiobook, and I, of course, listened to it sped up, but, you know, I would have liked for it to be a little bit longer. I thought it would have been fine. So it's a survival story about a boy who has gotten separated from his parents and is marooned on the planet Sovereign. And his parents are space explorers. So, just to give you a little idea of what that's about. Then the only other 2 books I think that I haven't shown you that I read this month that are not Dr. Seuss related are 2 that I finished up at the beginning of the month that had been for Amish in April. And that is The Betrayal by Beverly Lewis, book 2 in the Abrams Daughter series. And then A Plain Scandal by Amanda Flower, which is book 2 in the Appleseed Creek Mystery series. It's a 4-book series, and that's book 2. So that is everything, I think, except for the Dr. Seuss books, which will come in a different video. And thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have read any of these books and what you thought of them. And did you participate in Middle Grade May? If so, what did you read? Did you do book a day in May? Did you attempt it and not quite make it? Or did you do it? Did you accomplish it? Let me know. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.